What's going on, my friends? It is Friday Q&A day. It is Friday the 13th. It is spooky, scary Friday. It is MCAT day for some of you. Some of you may be taking the MCAT today. I hope it's going well wherever you are. I hope it is everything you hoped and dreamed for. Because it is not much more than that. Oh, man, crazy times we live in. I hope you had a wonderful week. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what questions you have about being a pre-med, and I would love to answer them. If you haven't yet seen, we released a new AI essay editing tool for free. Go check that out. It's just for personal statements right now over at medicalschoolhq.net. But I'm here for the next hour answering your questions. I feel like a radio DJ, especially being sick. My voice is a little bit deeper, a little raspier today. I was thinking about like pre-med radio. What station would we be? Um, and I think there's only one obvious answer to what station we would be. Right, growing up, the rock station in Tampa was 98.7, I think. Um, let's see. 97.9 was known as 98 Rock. Yeah. So that's what I grew up with. 98 Rock. But I think the obvious answer is that the pre-med radio station would be 52.8. That would be the obvious answer there. Question from our Pooh Bear friend. Do med schools, dental schools still value upward trends with how competitive things are getting? Yeah. Yeah. Every single day. And here's the nuanced answer to that, right? It's every single day for the schools that care about it. And we still see plenty of schools that care about it. You'll see other schools, right? And NYU, I always call out as being the school that's just ridiculously high stat wise. They don't care about upward trends. They want as close to perfection as possible. Get that upward trend going. How can I be effective and productive while learning research? Um, I don't know. I will tell you, I am the most like anti-research person out there. I think research is the most overrated part of this process. So productive and effective while learning research. I don't know what are you? How are you measuring productivity and effectiveness with research? Research oftentimes just comes down to luck. Like, hey, we did it right. It works. Uh, so, yeah. Another question from Instagram. I quit my MA assistant job because of a toxic workplace and some unethical things going on. Had about 200 hours. Should I still use this in my application? I'm still looking for other clinical experience. I think it depends when you get a question like that. Obviously, there's some potential concern of like, do you even put the contact information on there? 200 hours is still a decent amount, but you have to you have to wonder like, do I put the contact info on there? Are they going to reach out? That they'll never reach out. Never say never, but almost never. Um, yeah, I think there's one other question. It's not just the total hours, but the actual time, like length of time that you were there. Was it just 1 month? That might look a little bit weird. You may even, if you have another medical assistant job, just add it in there, right? Combine the two, and it's less of a concern. So you can do that as well. For those joining, ask your questions. I'm here to answer them for the next 55 minutes or so. Happy to answer. If I hack up a lung, forgive me. I'm still battling illness that I've had for 2 months now. The life of Segovia. Do you have any advice for writing activity section? How do you navigate the limited word count? So not limited word count, limited character count. um, yeah, I have a YouTube video about the activity section. I also have some examples of the activity section in my application process book. the Pre-Med Playbook Guide to the Medical School Application Process. You can find that on like Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, etc. So go check that out. And then, yeah, there's a YouTube video if you just Google activity section, medical school HQ. I often get thrown under the bus for being the story guy. If you've listened to anything I've talked about, I'm a huge fan of stories and anecdotes because I think that's how we connect as humans through story. And not every activity needs a story. Not every activity warrants a story. So you just have to be careful with that. I don't think you need stories for everything. How semesters hours at one volunteering or Patel? You gotta ask that again. I don't know what that question's saying. If you are applying to medical school, I'm not, thankfully, with a relatively low GPA, 3.033, would an MCAT score of 510 be good enough to apply? JG Brown, let me throw this one up on the screen because this is an important question to look at. I need to get my iPad back. I used to have my iPad connected so I could scribble and like show things. Let me see if I can. I'll do it this way. It's not gonna probably look great for Instagram, depending on how I can do this. Let's see. Right. I'm gonna share this question here. And then I'm gonna share my screen. All right. And then yeah, that'll work. All right. So that'll work just fine. All right. So here's the question, and I'm gonna be drawing with my mouse, so forgive me for not being the prettiest. Right. You have your GPA chart. Let me turn on my where's all my drawing tools? Of course, it's not going to let me have my drawing tools because sketch. Oh, I can sketch from my phone. Nice. Oh, but it does it that way. Darn it. I don't want to do it that way. All right. We're going to go old school and just do some lines. All right. So we have a line there. We have a line here. That's your GPA chart, right? So if you're at, let's just use 3.0 as the example. This could be, right? This is semesters, and this is GPA. You could have a trend that looks like this. Let's see. Where your first couple semesters are high, your next couple semesters are low. That could equal a 3.0. You could have one that starts low and then finishes high. That also could be a 3.0. You could also have a 3.0 that looked like this. And so anytime anyone asks me, right, this could be 3.0 cumulative GPA. That could be a 3.0 cumulative GPA. That could be a 3.0 cumulative GPA. Whenever anyone asks me, hey, if I have a low GPA, what are my chances? I can't answer that question because you didn't tell me the story behind the numbers. Are you this story? Are you this story? Are you this story? Right? They're all the same story. They're all the same number. All a very different story. Does that make sense? Michael, motorcycle, what's party pop? What's poppin' party people? Just got my first acceptance. Congratulations, Michael. That's fantastic. Where are you going, Michael? You want to share? You don't have to share. So when we talk about I have a low GPA, the immediate response from me, from anyone, if you see this on Reddit, you see this on Student Doctor Network, the immediate response should be, I don't know what your GPA means. I know what the number is, but I don't know what it means. And going back to the earlier question, right? Do med schools still value upward trend? This is what it means, right? If we were to look at this GPA where, hey, we started off low, but we finished strong, that's a huge story. And maybe some of this is post-bac works, maybe some of this is master levels work, whatever that might look like. That GPA trend matters. So my story for you, JG Brown 33, is what is the story behind your numbers? Because without that, I can't answer the question. First of all, I can't answer the question because I just don't know the story behind the numbers. And second of all, MCAT does not replace a GPA. MCAT does not help a poor GPA. So there's no scale out there that we can say, with this GPA, you need this MCAT. With this MCAT, you need this GPA. With this GPA, you need that MCAT. There's none of that out there. The GPA is one variable. The MCAT is another variable. They're different. And at the end of the day, you may need more GPA work, even with a solid MCAT score. So that's what I got for you. We've talked about this a bunch. How is the federal loan caps? We don't have to call it the BBB, right? Let's just call it federal loan caps. How is it going to change the landscape of admissions? We don't know. I don't know. At the end of the day, nobody knows. I did have a good interview with the Dean of Admissions, Dr. Layla Amiri. She's the Dean of Admissions at Larner College of Medicine at the University of Vermont. We talked about this. That episode's coming out in a few weeks on the pre-med years, so go check that out. But I brought it up during the conversation. I think it's a lot of unknown. She had talked about how schools are trying to find trustworthy lenders to partner with for their students. They're looking at, even schools are looking at setting up loans specifically through the school, so that it's the school that is loaning you money. I think that's a fantastic opportunity. Number one, it just makes business sense, right? At the end of the day, these are businesses, and it just makes good business sense to support students who are coming in, and they're going to charge interest on that money, right? And hopefully they can be competitive with what the kind of market rates are, federal market rates at least. And they're making a little bit of money on interest as well. So I think that's great. So yeah, to be determined. Devin Falcon. As a non-trad, it's hard to leave a job as a junior applying next year, then doing research. I just started clinical and shadowing. Do I need to worry about how many hours are accumulated before I apply? That's one factor, definitely. That's definitely one factor. I think a lot of students, unfortunately, put all of their eggs into the anticipated basket. I think that's a huge mistake. The whole point of these hours is to get them, to experience them, to feel them, right, emotionally, to reflect on them, to write about them, to talk about them. You have to have those hours before you apply, not for the medical schools, but for you. For you. Ruthless prom. When admissions committees review applications, is it easy for them to spot a non-trad? Let me ask a question with a question. What does it matter? What does it matter? What are you hoping for? I have my paramedic license. Would medical schools favor a paramedic license over EMT? They don't care about your certification. They don't care about your certification. This is a very common question, right? How do I best utilize my paramedic license and experience on my application? How do I best use my military experience on my application? How do I best utilize my non-traditional experience on my application? Going back to that question about, is it easy for them to spot a non-trad? Everyone is looking for the angle to stand out. And it's my point of view. And it was funny. I was talking with director of admissions at a medical school yesterday. And we were having this conversation. And I told them my stance on when students ask about standing out. And I said, I told them, my response is, you can't stand out. The goal of this process is to be you. And your authenticity is what ultimately stands out. And so when you think about this process about utilizing your paramedic license and experience on your application, you don't utilize it. You don't maneuver it and angle it in a way to help you stand out. You just be authentic about it. Why did you become a paramedic? Obviously, you became a paramedic. That's not a normal non-trad path, or not a normal pre-med path. So you obviously, seemingly, were interested in the firefighter world, the first responder world, and then at some point decided to make the leap and go to medical school. And the question is, what is that story? Not necessarily, hey, look at me, I have a paramedic license, but what is the story that took you from first responder world to now wanting to be on the receiving end of those first responders? That's the question. Wahida Amiri, is a 3.54 GPA good enough to apply? Let me go right back to my chart. Apparently, they weren't here for this chart. I drew this earlier. This is the chart that I think is what matters the most. So let's change this, right, to 3.54. 3.54. 3.54. Okay. So, Wahida, you have 3.54 GPA. Which one of these are you? Are you this one? Right? Let me color code these. Let me see. I don't know why. I'm not going to use this tool anymore. Oh, there's this. Wait, can I scribble? Oh no, that's a stupid. I don't want the pen tool. I want the scribble tool. Oh well. um, are you this one? I wish I could do colors. Oh, there's colors. There. That's the bad one. Let's go a little bit. Oh, we can make it dotted. All right. Are you? Oh, can go thicker. There we go. Are you this one? Or are you this one? All right. So green. Green is good, right? Your trend may have started low. And assuming, right, that these are semesters that you're increasing, right? You're increasing the difficulty, assuming there's an increasing difficulty of science courses, and you're getting better taking those science courses. That's a good thing. If you're a 3.54 student and you started off good, but now you're struggling, that's not a good thing, assuming you have an increasing difficulty of science courses. I was talking to a student yesterday. She was in this same boat. She had like a 3.4 overall GPA, 3.2 science GPA, transferring from community college, doing dual enrollment, to then a big university. Her GPA dropped precipitously. That's not a good sign for medical schools, that you're going to handle the rigor of medical school. And then this flatline yellow person, I mean, to me, that's just you have either no desire for improvement, no ability to improve, or anything else. So that's that's not good either. Hopefully that's helpful. Does that chart help you all? Does that so whenever anyone gives me a number, unless the number's like, hey, I have a 3.8 GPA, is that okay? I'm like, yeah, 3.8 GPA is fine. That trend, that looking at those charts and up and down and all around, really matters when the GPA is starting to come in a little bit lower, 3.6, 3.5, 3.4, all of that stuff. So again, same question. GPA is 3.66. I don't know what that means. Is it a good GPA? Not a good GPA? What does that look like? What is the trend there? Guys, I need you to start thinking about your trends. It matters. 3.66 GPA, 5.12 MCAT, one waitlist right now. There's potentially something else wrong with your application if that's the story. I still want to know what that story is in the GPA though. Volunteer hours 20 years ago. Volunteer clinical 20 years ago while in high school. High school doesn't count. Family obligations required me to work before I started college. Is there an expiration on these experiences and hours? Because they're in high school, they don't count. Also, volunteer clinical doesn't matter, right? You're getting paid to do your job now. That's perfectly fine. You don't need volunteer clinical. What we're looking for is clinical, either paid or volunteer. Non-clinical volunteering, aka generic community service, right? Homeless shelter, soup kitchen type stuff, and shadowing. Guys, if you ever see a Dr. Deborah Hendricks following you on Instagram, on social media, in real life, run, call 911, and yell that there's a stalker. Dr. Deb, what's going on, my friend? Do not have a question. Dr. Deb is one of the premier pre-health advisors out there in the world, doing God's work, because Lord knows dealing with you pre-meds is it's a heavy load, man. It's a heavy load. Hello, Deb. I'll text you later. How you doing? Hope you're well. I love the yoga pose. Nice little avatar. Fantastic. Love you too, my friend. All right. What can I do if my GPA is low? I've been through so much from before, because my illness. I really want to become a doctor. Same question twice. Well, number one, don't comment spam. Yeah, at the end of the day, Deb is now texting me. See what I mean about stalking? She won't leave me alone. Let me go back to the chart, right? At the end of the day, your goal, if you have a lower GPA, is to be this green line. No matter what, you need to get your GPA trend up. That's what matters. And so if you have a low GPA, the answer is take more classes, right? It's very simple. It's not easy. It's not inexpensive, but the answer is take more classes. That's how you improve your GPA. First and foremost, figure out why you're struggling. Was it just because illness? Was it for anyone else? Is it family responsibilities or other stuff? Um, but fix what happened. Don't dive back in until you know you're ready to start getting as close to a 4.0 as possible moving forward. And your overall GPA might not move much. That's okay. Get that trend up. If I volunteered in high school and carried it into college, can I include it in my app to show a trend or will it hurt my app? You can include the dates. I wouldn't include the hours. Can you talk about PSTP program? Are they as competitive as MD PhD programs? Well, first all off, right, at the end of the day, the question is the um the difference potentially between um an MD PhD program versus a PSTP program versus an MSTP program. At the end of the day, they're all different programs that different schools offer. And the school is going to be the one that's really determining the competitiveness of that program, not necessarily MSTP, PSTP, regular old MD, PhD. Obviously, people want the NIH funded spots from the MSTP program. So potentially that making a bigger difference. So yeah. When talking about getting that trend going, undergraduate classes, special master's classes, it ultimately depends on what you can afford. Typically, undergrad classes doing post-bac is not covered under any sort of loans. Um, Special master's programs are really expensive. I don't think they're necessary. You can just do a regular old master's in biomedical sciences or something, the hard sciences, focusing on that. And yeah, sometimes medical schools have expiring prereqs, so that's something to think about as well. I know unfinished prereqs won't disqualify me, but could applying with a 512 MCAT and 4 remaining prereqs hurt my application if they're done before matriculation? They shouldn't, right? If medical schools cared about having those prereqs before you applied, then they would require them before you apply. So they shouldn't. But also, what is your GPA? What is your science GPA? Is there any lingering questions about your ability to do well in those science courses? And if so, will those 4 extra courses make a difference? Is it hard to specialize if you are a DO medical student as opposed to an MD? I would like to specialize in dermatology or ophthalmology, but not sure if it would be possible for a DO medical student. So, yes, possible. Definitely possible. Just go online and see all of the DO dermatologists and ophthalmology residents and ophthalmologists out there. Is it harder? Potentially. Is it harder specifically because you're a DO student? Maybe, depending on the residency program. Um, so yeah, all of that data is available if you just go and look at the match data. There are charts that show DO students applying versus MD students applying, what the match rates are for those DO students, for those MD students. The problem is that that data doesn't show us why a student doesn't match. And is it just because they are a DO? We do know that DO students tend to fail step 1 at a higher rate than MD students. So is it because they're failing step 1 at a higher rate? It's about, I think last I saw it was like 3, 4, 5% higher. failure rate for DO students. And I think part of that, you have to remember potentially what leads students to go to a DO program in the first place. I'm all aboard the DO equals MD train, but it's very clear that DO schools are often a backup choice for students based on stats. And so there's a lot of self selection in this process and self filtering in this process where students with lower MCAT scores tend to apply more heavily to DO schools because they think they have a better chance. And yeah, that's probably true, right? The average MCAT score for an accepted DO student is around a 503, 504. The average matriculated MCAT score for MCAT school students is 512.1 now. So there's a big difference. And so you have a student who struggled on a big standardized test like the MCAT. That trend is likely potentially to continue in medical school and struggle with the big standardized test of step one. And so it's not that they're a DO student that's causing them to struggle with step one. It's the fact that they probably just aren't a great big standardized test taker, right? Which is what led them to go and seek out a DO school in the first place. I don't like that differentiation of DO versus MD being high MCAT, low MCAT. But that's the reality that we're in right now, where students are going and finding schools based on their MCAT score, and they think and know that they have a better chance of getting into a DO school with a lower MCAT score. So yeah, I'm going to in a few weeks going to Virginia. I think it's still on. Yeah. Maybe I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it because that's what I do. Going to Virginia to speak to like the board of deans for DO schools, and kind of give them a piece of my mind about kind of what they're doing and how they're. My biggest thing is the stupid deposits for DO students, for DO schools. It's ridiculous. So crazy. Volunteered to chaperone kids with disabilities for 9-ish months in 2022. Then I had a job as a bioinformatics teacher in high school, but got defunded. 100 hours. Overall worried about longevity of activities. Yeah, I'd be worried too. Don't know what your question is there. Dragonkin. I'm in a special master's program, but have some soon to expire classes that I ideally take those undergrad classes to meet the prereqs. So I can't answer that question for you, right? Is it ideal to take those undergrad classes to meet the prereqs that some top schools require? If you're interested in applying to those schools that require the prereqs, then yeah, you have to take those classes. If you can build a school list and navigate yourself around the prereq requirements and not need to retake those classes, great, do that. That's a you decision. What are your thoughts on working part-time as a med student, or do you recommend just fully relying on student loans for living expenses? All right. So I'm going to I'm gonna say, do as I say, not as I did. I worked during medical school. I was a personal trainer before medical school, kept working as a personal trainer in medical school. I was not financially literate. I'm still not super financially literate. I came from a family structure that just wasn't great with money. And so I worked, and I regret working. I should have, and students should focus your time on being a medical student. Your goal in medical school is to set yourself up for success for your residency application. This is not a let's just get through this process. This is a I need to continue to thrive process for setting yourself up as best as possible for your residency application, for your residency program, so that when you are in that world, you're setting yourself up for your attending job. So yeah, I wouldn't work. And Some medical schools don't let you work. It's part of their kind of student code of conduct. So that's something you need to explore as well. Um, I yeah, don't nah, I'm not even gonna go there. Yeah, don't work. I wouldn't recommend it. They lowered the amount of loans medical students can take out. Isn't there a bill being passed or passing soon? Uh, I mean, not sure what your what's your question? You made the statement. Is there a bill being passed or passing soon for what? Yes, they lowered the amount of loans that medical students can take out. What bill is being passed or passing soon? If the question is there a bill being passed or passing soon that lowers the amount of loans medical students can take out? No, it's already passed, which is your statement that they've lowered the amount of student loans they can take out. What is that question? Do you guys have programs that help with applications and writing? We do. Medicalschoolhq.net. Go check it out. Disregard. I got into a BSDO 6-year program and into Stanford for human biology. What's your advice? My advice is to type out what's and your and not what's your. No, never mind. I'm not a fan of BSDO programs or BSMD programs. I would say go to Stanford, and if you feel like you will thrive there, go to Stanford, live your life, and go from there. I'm not a fan of these programs. I think if you are a solid enough student that obviously got into Stanford, that gets into one of these BSDO programs, you're going to be a solid student during undergrad. And if you decide to apply to medical school still later on, you will set yourself up for having more options later. So yeah, not a fan at all of these BSDO, BSMD programs. I was part-time for about a half a year of undergrad. I worked a low-level non-medical job. Should I mention this in my personal statement? And should I include the job on my application? It belongs nowhere on your personal statements. Your personal statement is not a resume. Your personal statement is, why do you want to be a doctor? If you have more context as to why you might want to include it in your personal statement, let me know. But that doesn't belong in your personal statement. Your personal statement, why do you want to be a doctor? Show me that path. Should you include it in your activity section? Absolutely. If I start working as an EMT 1 year before my application, and that's my only clinical experience, is that enough time to show that consistency they're looking for? Or does it look like box checking? I mean, 1 year is better than 1 month. 2 years is better than 1 year. 3 years is better than 2 years. Um, how often are you going to be working? 1 year before? Is it once a month? Is it once every 6 months? So not just total time, but what does that pace look like as well? But yeah, should be fine. I meant to include it in my personal statement because it's the reason I was part-time most of undergrad. Or will they not care that I was part-time? Oh, so you were a part-time student. Okay. I misread that. I was part-time student in undergrad because of your job. Not I worked part-time in undergrad. Yeah, no, it doesn't belong in your application. In your personal statement. But the work goes in your activity section. Some secondaries might have a question about if you weren't a full-time student, what were you doing? So just be prepared to talk about it if a secondary question asks about it. I have substantial clinical experience, but no research experience. Do I need research experience? There's my 3+ years as a medical assistant enough. Research is the most overrated part of the application. A most overrated part of the application. So if you look at this is just kind of my opinion, but if you look at what matters most, it's kind of this. And leadership ideally is kind of sprinkled. Do that. All right. This is decreasing order of importance. I like making these little charts with you today. Right? That's decreasing order of importance there. Hope that helps. All right. How many hobbies? One. Just one. I wouldn't fluff up with more than one. It just looks like you're trying to hide a lack of other stuff. I was selected part of a medical school mentorship program called Med Mentors, hosted by Learners Medical School for 6 months. Can I put that in my activity section? Sure. I'm not sure what the goal of putting it in your activity section is. Let me know. Hey, Dr. Gray, I took almost all of my prereqs online. If I take bio and chem, for example, in class, would it strengthen my application even if I get slightly lower grade? First of all, I'm worried that you assume you're going to get a lower grade just because you're taking it in person. That tells me that you don't think you're a very strong student. Well, guess what medical school is? Medical school is all in person, kind of. So yeah, I mean, there are some schools that don't even accept online prereqs, so you're gonna limit yourself there. Are you gonna go and take bio and chem online just to help strengthen your application? I wouldn't start to play that game, assuming all of your other ones are in person or online rather. Currently studying for the MCAT full time, worried about the gap and lack of hours I'm doing for other activities. Do they see these as a red flag? I mean, it depends on how long your gap is. Ideally, ideally, you're not taking like a year to do that. Would I include teaching in that list? The list of activities that I just showed. Yeah, I mean, teaching. That's all under the other tutoring, TA. There are 18 or 19 categories now. Social justice is on there. You have military services on there. So I'm not capturing everything, but these are the high level ones. And then everything else is what you should be thinking about. Am I cooked with a 512 MCAT and a 123 cars? For some schools. For some schools. Emory is the one I always bring up. Let me show their let's see. Emory. I always like to show their stuff because they are the ones that have this. So if we look at MD admissions for Emory, for the MCAT, they will say a score of 124 in each section in order to receive a secondary. So if you don't have a 124 in each section, you will not receive a secondary from Emory. Let me put that higher so you can see it. It's not blocking. How would a school know you took a prereq online? Because you're honest and say you took it online. You mark it as online. The transcript oftentimes will say it's an online prereq. For mapped, can one ask for the LOR sent to it for review too? I'm not sure what that question is asking. So when you request a letter of recommendation for mapped, the letter writer sends it to mapped. We store it, we review it, make sure it is on letterhead, it's dated, it's signed, it has contact information. Those are the four things that schools are typically looking for. And then we'll send it to AMCAS and ACOMAS when requested. But we're not looking, if your question is if we're looking at the like subjectivity of the letter, is it a good letter or a bad letter? That is outside of our ethical kind of constraints. So yeah. Is taking the MCAT June 26th late. It's fine as long as you're getting your application in before. Don't wait for your MCAT score. Apply to one school just to get your MCAT or your application submitted and go from there. My only real clinical experience, what is fake clinical experience, was 250 hours of a medical assistant internship I did for a local clinic over the summer. If my application is strong outside of this, is it not a huge red flag? That is a ginormous red flag. That is the reddest flag of red flags. Lack of clinical experience is the number one reason we see students not get into medical school. Period. End of story. All day, every day. 520 MCAT score, 4.0 GPA. Just a few hours of a medical assistant internship. But by the way, what's a medical assistant internship? Was that part of your medical assistant certification? It's a weird title. And you did it over the summer. What summer was it? Was it a year ago? Was it 2 years ago? Yeah, huge red flag. Huge. Uh, you people, right? Going back to clinical experience, number one by far and away. Can do decreasing. Can't even do this. Let's see. Wait, that's too big. smaller? Oh, 18. I would do 24 there. And then everything else is smaller. Clinical, clinical, clinical. I am very biased on clinical experience, and it's hard for me to reconcile that often with how other countries do it. Right, Canada, for example, it's like, what are your stats? Let's go. But at the end of the day, when I interviewed a teacher, she's a biology teacher at ASU on the podcast about some research that she did about medical school admissions. And I hear from her, I was pre-med, I went to medical school, and I dropped out because I realized I didn't like the clinical setting. I'm like, oh, that's probably you should probably why you should get clinical experience before you start medical schools to prove to yourself that you like being around patients, that you like taking care of sick people. It is special. It's different. And yeah, to prevent dropout rate. It's exactly it. It's to prevent dropout. It's to prevent burnout because you're not happy with what you're doing. So important. I just took patient vitals and roomed them essentially. I mean, that's what a medical assistant does, but so it wasn't part of your training, your medical assistant training, or was it? Was it a required part of getting your certification? That's what I'm asking. Or I wonder, Colin, did you get paid for it? You call it an internship. I wonder if you got paid for it. There are too many physicians out there who are calling things internships. Like, come to me. I have this internship for a pre-med, and it's unpaid work. And I'm like, I think you guys are breaking the law here because you need to pay students. No one wants a grumpy caregiver. Exactly. How do you decide on your specialty early on so you can cater more research experiences towards it? Yeah, that's one of the challenges. And ultimately, research, again, is overrated part of the residency application process, too, which is a very asinine comment to make with given the astronomical increase in research that's happening right now. I was just at the AAMC conference and they showed the data and they're like, the crazy research numbers are coming from the outliers that are just pumping out tons of research. They showed graphs, and I have them, but I won't share them here. They showed graphs that kind of research trends are following a standard, predictable kind of increase of research. Nothing crazy, but yeah, that's part of the game is trying to figure out as early as possible what you might be interested in. If I take the MCAT on May 5th, I submit my primary on May 1st to start verification before my score is released. If you take it May 5th, you can wait until June 5th or whatever to get your score and submit your application then. You can't submit your primary on May 1st. Primary is open the first week of May, typically. For AMCAS specifically, you can't submit your application until the end of May. So. Rush or the Who? I'm gonna go with the Big Daddy answer. Sticks. It's all about sticks. Would you consider 450 hours as an MA for 10 months sufficient if that's my only form of clinical other than shadowing, I'm assuming. Shadowing is not clinical. 450 hours as a medical assistant for 10 months is fantastic. Now, the question, and this is where all the nuance matters, right? The question is it 450 hours 2 years ago for 10 months? Or is it 450 hours over the last 10 months with more still happening moving forward throughout the application? That nuance matters. Is a point to apply to in-state schools with higher 10th percentile MCAT 516 than mine? Is there a point? I'm assuming is the question there. I will tell you, I go against the trend when applying. I don't think you should use your MCAT to pick your schools. I just don't. Right? A 513 is a solid MCAT score. Apply wherever you want. Right? Are you going to get into NYU? Probably not, because all they care about is 522, 523, 524. But a 513 is a solid score. Apply where you want. So yeah, is there a point? Absolutely. What AMCAS activities section would presenting a paper on bioethics at a philosophy conference go under? Probably just presentation. Presentation category. All right, friends, I'm going to end here. It's been fun hanging out for the hour. I'm typically here most Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern before I jump on calls for the day. I hope you have a wonderful week. Don't forget to check out Premed Years, our podcast, my podcast I've been doing for over 600 episodes now. Been doing it for 13 years. And check out our new AI essay tool at Medical School HQ as well. You can put in your personal statement and get a score, get some kind of high level feedback. It's trained on my book and lots of data points from real essay feedback. So go check that out. It's free. I know you all are using AI to edit your essays. So go use a free AI tool that is actually trained on personal statements for medical school. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. Have a great week. I'll see you later. Bye.